So now we're looking at Mao Zedong as one of the most important figures in Chinese history, especially for our course. And so we're going to continue with this question, why did China become communist? And hopefully by the end we'll have a better idea of what happened in China that allowed that to take place. So I do want to provide some context on the Republic of China, the official government that was in place after the Qing dynasty was overthrown. And then we'll just look at Mao Zedong. I'm going to mention the Long March just very briefly, and then we'll end with the establishment of the People's Republic of China. So just real quick, Sun Yat-sen established the Nationalist Party. There's their symbol, a sun. And remember that he never got a chance to rule. So the warlords took over, and they ruled for about 12 years. You remember from last time, the Paris Peace Conference, the Chinese want their land back. They don't get it back. Their land goes to Japan instead. And this sparks the May 4th movement, where a bunch of students initially, and then it spreads to other groups, but initially students are really upset with the warlord government in Beijing that allowed the Allies to take Chinese land and give it to Japan. So the important thing here is that both the nationalists and the communists unite to oppose the warlords. And this is the first united front. So this first united front begins in 1923, and it's an alliance between the nationalists and the communists. They're going to take down the warlords, and that's their goal anyway. The nationalists have much larger numbers than the communists, but communists do hope that through this alliance they can spread their ideology and hopefully convince people that communism is a good alternative to nationalism. So even though these two groups are allied, they're not really friends. They're allied to stop the warlords. And so, sadly, Sun Yat-sen died in 1925. When that happened, someone had to rise to take his place. And before I mention that, so sometimes students wonder, why is Sun Yat-sen this revered figure? He never got a chance to rule, and then before the Warlord Era was over, he died. He died in 1925. Well, part of the reason Sun Yat-sen is so revered is that his ideas were very revolutionary. A very intelligent, educated Chinese individual, medical doctor. But part of the reason he's so revered is because his legend continues. Even to this day, the Chinese government continues to roll him out as this anti-Qing dynasty or anti-dynasty figure. So actually, you'll see he dies in 1925, and then the Republic of China will actually create currency with his face on it. You can see this Central Bank of China currency note has his face on it. You actually see in the United States during World War II propaganda poster with the American Uncle Sam shaking hands with a Chinese soldier, and you can see Sun Yat-sen in the background. So his legend continues after his death, and he becomes this icon of what China became after the dynasties were over. So he died in 1925, and then Chiang Kai-shek rose to power afterward. Chiang Kai-shek did not like the communists. Sun Yat-sen was a little bit more willing to work with them. He saw a little bit more value in alliances with the Soviet Union and communism in general, but Chiang Kai-shek did not, and so Chiang Kai-shek becomes the leader of the Nationalist Party. He then, in 1927, slaughters huge numbers of communists and declares control. The Nationalists have moved their base of operations to Nanjing, and that actually becomes the capital of China during the Republic of China. It's no longer Beijing, it's Nanjing. So Chiang Kai-shek slaughters a bunch of communists, and this leads to the Chinese Civil War, the first Chinese Civil War, beginning in 1927 when he began to slaughter the communists. So Chiang Kai-shek, we don't spend a lot of time on him. He is an important figure. If you look in World War II, you can see Chiang Kai-shek on the far left. Next to him is FDR. Next to him is Winston Churchill. You can see that he is an important figure during World War II and afterwards, but we're just not going to focus as much on him. But all these things were happening when Mao Zedong was growing up. He was growing up during the Qing Dynasty era. He was growing up during Sun Yat-sen's nationalist revolution. He's growing up during all these events. He's exposed to nationalism and communism, and here we find him at the beginning of the 1900s, born in Hunan province. This is Hunan province right here. You can see from the map, and in the southern parts of China. He's a peasant in a peasant family. The family is not as impoverished as a lot of peasant families, but he is well off compared to a lot of other peasants, and he is much more well educated than a lot of other peasants would have been, and he's exposed to a lot of revolutionary ideas. So he did actually help during the Sun Yat-sen's nationalist revolution. He did volunteer as part of that revolution, and then in 1920 he starts to read Karl Marx's writings on communism, and he becomes very much interested in communism after that. He joins the Chinese Communist Party in 1921. The Long March is really important. We're fast forwarding here. This is in the 1930s. The Long March is mentioned in the reading that goes along with this topic. This is a very pivotal moment in Chinese history because the nationalists, and I'll show you the map, the nationalists were up here, and the nationalists come down to destroy the communists, and they're based here in Jiangxi. This is in October of 1934, so the nationalists are coming down, and the communists have to run. And this is very difficult. They're running through, fleeing through all this terrain and mountainous regions, and they end up, over the course of a year, they go all the way around this route up north in Yunnan. The Long March is really important, though, because Mao emerges as this important, heroic figure, and you can see the devastation that took place. It's pretty staggering. So it began in 1934. There were 86,000 troops. Over the course of 1 year, the communists lose almost all of their army. It goes from 86,000 to 8,000 troops. So huge losses throughout this long march. But it establishes Mao as this huge figure, this really important revolutionary figure people look up to, and the Long March, the communists are able to survive this long march, and they're able to continue on in China. So this is all the lead up to Edgar Snow going to interview Mao in 1936, and then the document that you read for this was published in 1937. So as you read through this, what impression do you get of Mao based on Edgar Snow's account? Remember, Edgar Snow is an American journalist who had been in China for a while and worked there for a while. So what sort of view do you get of Mao based on Snow's account? Also focus on how does Mao describe his relationship with his father, and what sort of impact might that have on his later life? And then finally, look at if you had been a Chinese peasant during this time, how would you have viewed the Red Army? So I think it's important to notice the sort of standards that Mao established so that the Red Army would come across favorably in the eyes of the peasants. So we're jumping ahead. We're not going to talk so much about World War II for China. When we look at the unit on Japan, we do focus a lot on World War II because Japan will invade China, and that will begin World War II in Asia. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that now, but I just want you to know that Long March in the 1930s, the communists are able to survive, and they stick around for more than a decade until we get to this moment on October the 1st, 1949, Mao declares the establishment of the People's Republic of China. You can see this image of Mao standing on a microphone declaring that this People's Republic of China exists. This is a color image from the same moment, a little different angle, but you can see Mao is declaring this People's Republic of China. The communists win. The communists defeat the nationalists. The nationalists, under Chiang Kai-shek, have to run. This is mainland China. Nanjing is where their base of operations were located. The nationalists have to run, and they run to Taiwan. Taiwan's official name, title, to this day is Republic of China. So please don't confuse the People's Republic of China, which is the communist government that Mao established in 1949, with the Republic of China, which today is on the island of Taiwan off the coast of China, and that is a government that Sun Yat-sen created in 1911, 1912, and that government never really lived up to the expectations that people thought it would, because Sun Yat-sen never got to rule and he died. So this is where Chiang Kai-shek and his nationalists have to go to, is Taiwan. Mao has an uneasy relationship with Stalin after this period. So this is a picture of Mao and Stalin. They're celebrating Stalin's 70th birthday in December 1949. But Mao does see some value in what Stalin has already done in the Soviet Union, which is the largest communist country. Remember that Russia was not an industrialized country. Neither is China in 1949. But one of the things that Stalin did was started to industrialize rapidly, and Mao saw value in this. And Mao said, okay, if the Soviets have done this, we should try this too. And so Mao begins to industrialize very rapidly in the People's Republic of China, but the results are disastrous. And that's what we're going to look at next time. So next time, the Great Leap Forward, which is Mao's plan to industrialize China very quickly. We're going to read about that. The document is very different than most of the primary sources because it's a police record. And so take a look at that. If you haven't looked at the crash course video, look at that too. And then also be looking online on Canvas for feedback related to the first big team assignment. So that's all I've got, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.